A couple weeks ago, I was speaking with an advisor who had just closed a deal. Clean transition, strong valuation, clients well taken care of. And he said something that caught me off guard. He said, "I'm glad I didn't waste 10 years trying to force a succession plan that was never going to work. That runs against everything this industry has been told for like 40 years. For years, the message has been start early, 5, 10, 15 years in advance. Pick a rookie, train that rookie, groom that rookie, mold that rookie into a younger version of you, and then do that transition internally." Is that sounding familiar? It should. That's the old paradigm. But that's not what actually is happening in today's market. And more importantly, it's not where the best outcomes, the best deals are coming from. Let me tell you about Mark. Mark, 64, built a $500 million practice, disciplined, process-driven, highly profitable. He knew the old script, the one that preaches starting early and forcing an internal fit. He looked at it seriously, and then he made a decision many advisors don't make. He chose not to force it. No junior partner with artificial timelines. No discounted or drawn out deals to make it work. No pretending someone was ready when they weren't. Instead, he focused on one thing: building the cleanest, the most transferable, the most valuable business that he could. Tight operations, documented processes, stable client base, multi-generational for many clients, clear revenue quality. He built an asset, not a dependency. Then, when the time came, he went to market, not to sell, to find the best successor. What happened next is what most advisors hope internal succession will deliver, but it rarely does. He had multiple qualified buyers, different structures, different philosophies, different long-term homes for his clients. His decision wasn't constrained by who happened to be working in his office then. It was driven by fit when he became ready. He chose the firm that aligned best with his clients, his philosophy, and yes, his economics. And the transition worked, not because he spent 10 years planning succession, but because he spent those years building something worth succeeding into. And here's the alarming reality. Here's the part most people don't say out loud. A majority of advisors say they plan to transition internally, but when the deals actually happen, most are external. Why? Because internal succession fails gradually and quietly. The next generation doesn't develop. The next generation can't finance it, especially at today's valuations. And because of one or both of those, the founder never truly steps aside. So while the industry promotes internal succession as the gold standard, the market is telling you something very different. The best succession outcomes are increasingly happening through M&A, not as a last resort, but as the primary mechanism. There's 3 reasons for this. I'll give you 3 assertions. 1, the 10-year succession plan is mostly fiction. Let's challenge the old paradigm directly. The idea that you should map out your successor 10 years in advance kind of sounds reasonable, sounds disciplined, even sounds like it might be the easy path. And in most cases, like 95%, it's wrong, because you're making a long-term decision based on short-term visibility. You don't know who that person will become, whether they'll develop into the needed leader, whether clients will ultimately trust them, or whether they'll even stay. So what happens? Advisors lock into suboptimal paths. They try to develop a successor instead of selecting the best one. And over time, they start managing around that gap. Lower expectations, delayed timelines, compromised outcomes. That's not succession. That's accommodation. Here's my assertion number 2. The market is a better matchmaker than your organization chart. When you go external, everything changes. You're no longer limited to one internal candidate, one personality with one capability set, one bet on the future. Now you're evaluating a market, multiple buyers, different strengths, different operating models. Some are exceptional with client continuity, some bring institutional infrastructure, some align culturally in ways that matter long term. And importantly, you choose, not based on convenience, but based on fit then, when you are ready for succession. That's a fundamentally different approach to succession than the 40 years of industry advice. It turns a constrained decision into a competitive process, and competitive processes produce better outcomes every time. Here's my third assertion. Value is built before succession, not during it. And here's where a lot of advisors get it backwards. They think succession is something you build towards by grooming a person. In reality, succession is something you enable by building a business. The more your practice is process-driven instead of personality-driven, team-supported instead of founder-dependent, operationally clean and financially transparent, the more valuable and transferable it becomes. And that's what the market rewards, not the story of your internal plan, but the quality of the asset. Because a strong business attracts strong successors, strong buyers, and a weak one limits your options, no matter how early you start. So when you look at wealth management practice emanate today, yes, there is growth capital, there's private equity money, yes, there is consolidation, yes, there are platform strategies. But underneath it all, it's succession. Advisors not trying to scale up, but trying to solve for continuity, for fit, for legacy. And they're increasingly doing it the same way Mark did, not by forcing a successor, but by finding one. If there's one shift happening in this industry, it's this. Succession is moving from an internal planning exercise to a market-driven outcome. So the question isn't, who inside my firm might take over someday? The better question is, and this is what really matters, am I building a business that the best successors in the market would want? Because the advisors who focus on that, they create options. And in this environment, options are everything. That's why succession, not growth, is driving most wealth management practice emanate today. If you found this episode helpful and you're a practice owner interested in exploring succession, reach out to an Advisor Hunt consultant for a confidential discussion. And if you'd like to see more content on succession, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be first to get future episodes. I'm Darrell with Advisor Hunt. It's good to have you here, and we'll see you next time.